All right, let's get into it. We're about to talk about a massive, and I mean massive, shift in an industry that is quite literally the backbone of our modern world. And it's all starting in a place you might not expect. This isn't just a small tweak, it's a fundamental reinvention of something we all rely on every single day.
And yeah, that sounds like a huge claim, but stick with me because it is really happening. We're talking about the steel industry, historically one of the planet's biggest polluters, and it's going through this radical change. The center of it all? Sweden.
So, why is this such a huge deal? Well, it all comes down to this number. The global iron and steel industry is responsible for somewhere between 7 and 9% of all carbon dioxide emissions. That is a gigantic piece of the climate puzzle, and the solution we're about to look at could be a total game changer. Okay, so how did steel get this, let's call it, dirty reputation in the first place? To really get why this new development is so incredible, we have to understand the problem we're trying to solve. So let's dig into steel's dirty secret. I mean, just think about it for a second. Steel is absolutely everywhere. It's the skeleton holding up our skyscrapers, the frame in our cars, the structure of our bridges. Our entire modern way of life is built on a foundation of steel, which makes cleaning up how we make it both incredibly challenging and unbelievably important. And this is really the heart of the issue. For hundreds of years, the basic recipe for making steel hasn't changed all that much. You take iron ore and you use a whole lot of coal to blast it with heat and rip the oxygen atoms off the iron. And the unavoidable result of that chemical reaction? You guessed it, huge, huge amounts of carbon dioxide. And this just puts it in stark perspective. Think about this. For every single ton of steel you make the old-fashioned way, you pump nearly 2 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. And when you remember the world produces about 1.8 billion tons of steel a year, well, you can see how fast those emissions stack up. But what if you could change that fundamental recipe? What if you could take coal completely out of the picture? That is exactly what's happening in Sweden. This is all about the incredible innovation that could literally rewrite the future for this entire industry. And this is where the magic is happening. It's the hybrid pilot plant in northern Sweden. This is a big team-up between a steelmaker, an iron ore company, and a power company. And this isn't just some theory in a lab. They are already making the world's first steel completely free of fossil fuels. So what is hybrid exactly? It stands for Hydrogen Breakthrough Iron-Making Technology. And the name says it all. Instead of using coal to do the dirty work of separating iron from ore, it uses green hydrogen. And green is the key word there. It means the hydrogen was made using electricity from renewable sources, like wind and water power. Okay, now this is the really cool part. It's just beautiful chemistry. On the left, you've got the old way. Coal plus iron gives you steel, plus a lot of CO2. But on the right, you see the new way. Green hydrogen plus iron gives you steel. And the only byproduct is water. Just water, H2O. It completely flips the environmental script. And it's not just about that one chemical reaction. The whole system has been reimagined from the ground up. You start with renewable power. That power creates the green hydrogen. That hydrogen is then used to make something called sponge iron, which is then melted down, all of it using fossil-free energy. It's a completely clean loop. And this isn't some far-off in the future dream. It is happening right now, and it's happening fast. The very first trial delivery was back in 2021. But look at this. There's already a competitor aiming for full production in 2024, with hybrid not far behind. This has become a full-on race to bring green steel to the world. And believe me, this race is about way more than just who gets there first. We're talking about massive global consequences. It's about reshaping the economics of a trillion-dollar industry. Now, this right here might be the secret economic weapon that makes it all work. It's called the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM for short. Starting in 2026, the EU is basically going to put a carbon tax at its border. So if you make steel using a lot of coal and you want to sell it in Europe, it's about to get a whole lot more expensive. This chart lays it out perfectly. If you're importing that dirty, high-carbon steel, bam, you're going to get hit with a hefty fee. But if you're bringing in that clean, green steel from Sweden, that fee is going to be super low, maybe even zero. Suddenly, being clean isn't just good for the planet, it's good for the bottom line. So what's the bottom line here? The money is starting to follow the green path. Because of policies like this and rising carbon prices,
The cost of making steel the old way is set to jump by more than 30% over the next decade. The business case for going green is becoming almost impossible to argue with.
So we've seen the global picture, right? But this huge shift is having a very real impact on the ground right now. So let's zoom all the way back in to the specific place in Sweden where this industrial revolution is actually being born. Welcome to Norrbotten. We're talking way, way up in the far north of Sweden. For a very long time, this was a pretty remote, quiet part of the world. Not anymore. Today, it is ground zero for the global green industrial transition. So you gotta ask, why here, of all the places on Earth? Well, it turns out Norrbotten has the perfect recipe. It's got the most important ingredient, 90% of the EU's iron ore. It has tons of cheap, clean electricity from hydropower, and you've got the right companies and government support all in one place, ready to go. The amount of money being poured into this region is just staggering. Just look at this number. One company alone, H2 GreenSteel, is investing 75 billion Swedish kroner. That's over 7 billion US dollars for just one new plant. It is a monumental bet on the future. And hold on, because that's not even the biggest number. The local iron ore giant, LKAB, is planning its own 20-year transformation that could cost up to 400 billion kroner. We are talking about tens of billions of dollars being invested to completely remake the industrial fabric of this entire region. And I think this quote just captures the ambition here perfectly. This was never just about Sweden. The whole idea is to use this huge effort to build a blueprint, a model for green industry that the rest of the world can follow. It's about creating momentum for a global shift. Which leaves us with this final massive question. The tech works, the money is there, the economics are starting to line up. So the question isn't really if green steel can be made anymore. The real question is, how fast can this revolution, starting in this one remote part of Sweden, scale up to truly forge a cleaner future for all of us?